from this community of non-artists. And then once we synthesized all their ideas into a professional design, we then engaged all those same people and more into the actual hands-on process of putting paint on the wall and getting that mural painted. So there, to me, there is always, there's an African proverb I like that says, if you can walk, you can dance. And if you can talk, you can sing. That doesn't mean you're Mariah Carey. It doesn't mean you're Whitney Houston. It doesn't mean you're Alvin Ailey. But if you take the risk, the little risk to try something new, you'll be amazed at what is within you to contribute to a process or to something that's for the greater, larger good.
Absolutely. So you were talking about, growing up with your family, but overall, would you say, were you born and raised in Chicago, or
I was.
Did you live elsewhere? Okay, yeah, I thought you may have said I wasn't exactly certain. Okay, and then as far as your past, as far as the artwork, where did the bridge become more clear between actually completing or facilitating these commissions and just, pieces that came about, through your own, creativity or creative needs, and being able to translate that into, visualization even outside of artwork, and how that could be, shared with people, to enhance their lives. Where did that happen? How did you get on that path, sharing that information?
The part about connecting with community also came from my mother and father initially when I was very young, because I had the experience as a child knowing, not necessarily seeing, but knowing that my father had been a leader in the civil rights movement with CORE, and that my mother and my brother went to jail and, marching. And so there was a very strong emphasis in our family on the importance of family and community and people, and that the grassroots connecting with people was really important. So that's why the community murals really worked for me. And what happened early on in creating murals that I experienced was these non-artists, this one boy one day was walking along that mural I mentioned that's 326 feet long, and it went from this chain link fence that had previously been there that also was a danger because the kids would jump it, and there was a train behind there, so there was a lot of danger involved and the community was concerned, to this mural that spoke to the community, about the community, and for the community. And this little boy was walking down the wall, and he was running his hand along the wall, and all he could say was, color, 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 so much color. And the joy in him and the comments that we got from people, I was only doing murals maybe 3 or 4 years at that point, but that really had a huge impact on me to understand this experience, not just the art, but the experience of being a part of creating it, helped that community and those children and the adults visualize something different and more positive for themselves and their life.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, children, I don't know, you bring children around art and music, and some of the most amazing things can happen because they're not, afraid at all or ashamed or, have any reservations about letting themselves be connected to the work, and that in its rawest form, whether they like it or they don't, you're going to know with no holds barred. So that's a beautiful story. And just a reminder, I think we can go ahead and hop into the topic now, but just a reminder to all of our listeners, if you do have a question or a statement for Kiela, please either post it to the Ignite Your Soul Connection Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/IgniteYourSoulConnection, or press 1 on your telephone, touch tone, keypad, or mobile device, and we'll make sure that we get to you. So what are we speaking about tonight? Visualization, yes?
Yes.
All right. Take it away.
Okay, so so much to cover, so few years to live. I use an analogy for my own life because it's my life experience that the creative process for me, is a matter of making what some perceive and what some define as the impossible possible. And what in a real life way, what that means to me is taking the essence of what life is and making it manifest, making it real, and really understanding the power that each of us as individuals, let alone as a whole collective, have to change the course and the direction and the decision of what we bring into our life. So what that means to me is I can have an idea of something. Everything that exists in the world was once an idea. And that idea can become real if I am willing to take a risk and trust myself, take a risk and have faith in that ability. And so I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that creativity is limited to artists, ever. It never was. And I don't accept that at all. Even people who will say to me, oh, I don't have a creative bone in my body, all I can draw is a stick figure. Drawing a figure is not the only way to express creativity. Any and everything that we use in our life on a practical level, the car we drive, the lights we use, the tables we sit at, those are actually all designed by someone. Someone had the idea to make that thing. And at that point, it was just an idea. And so then to take that idea and then engage the steps to make it real is something that each and every one of us possesses. And visualizing starts with an idea. It starts with the belief that we can take anything, literally. I mean, think about where we were, like you were saying, about where we were 20 years ago, pre-internet. People had pagers and big clunky cell phones, and how much power we really have if we allow ourselves. I could go on about this, but I don't know if maybe you wanted me to touch on perhaps some specific techniques or not. But I did want to say that the other connected part of that is the power of the intention in it. Because it's just like if you imagine when someone buys a new car. They didn't have that car to begin with. It was an idea. So the car might have existed, and they eventually got it. But it all had to start with the intention of wanting something. And so then we start to pay attention. Then we start to notice what's been there all along, because none of us were created to have anything but success.
Absolutely. So before you go into actual specific techniques, I definitely would like you to share more about the power of intention as well as recognizing the power as you articulated it.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that.
Recognizing the power or recognizing your power. I believe you mentioned something similar to that.
It might sound oversimplified, but as far as I'm concerned, there are only a few things really necessary to embrace or begin embracing our own power. And the first one is, for many people, really probably the most difficult, and that is to give yourself permission and to receive and be open to receiving what that is that you're asking for, whatever that intention is. Because we grow up as children being told, don't do this, don't do that, oh, you can't be that, or, whatever the self-talk is and the external talk from our family and our friends. And over time, you begin to believe it, or you at least begin to forget what those dreams really were, or what you have within. And so some of it really starts with allowing and giving yourself permission to reconnect um, there was another thought connected to that, and it just left me. I apologize. And in that permission to me is huge, because permission is not external. Even for a child, which is a hard challenge, because I have 3 children, and that's something, even as a parent and them as a child, we go back and forth, because I homeschooled them for a long time. I really believed in allowing them to discover who they are. And in the same breath, it's like, okay, how do you allow them to discover who they are and have them be respectful and have them be, considerate, and the things that every parent wants their child to hopefully have good manners and be, a great person. And so that I know it's a challenge, and as a child, it's easy just to say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But where do you fit in there? And so if that stuff is diminished, when you get older, you've got to start working on giving yourself permission and not asking for permission from someone else. And sometimes we don't recognize when we're doing that.
Wow, that's powerful. No, I mean, I've never heard it articulated that way, so it's just that's definitely something to think more about, and actually, the idea of really putting that concept into practice, or evaluating that within one's own journey, that's really, it's just a really, really profound concept. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I just wanted to say about that. If you don't, I don't know. I'm not 100% certain for every person in the world, but for me, without that, I can't be open enough to receive what it is I'm intending for myself, because my self-talk kills it.
Okay, let's check and see if we have any questions right now. Not at the exact moment. I guess we could talk about making the impossible possible, and I'm imagining that would go into, I suppose, a few methodologies. But yeah, let's start with making the impossible possible, and then we can more than likely go into a bit more of your techniques or, any other stories or recommendations.
Making the impossible possible. I started saying that because my cousin gave me a gift one year of this woman holding on to a rainbow, and she was hanging from the rainbow. And it said, "What the world needs more. What the world needs more people who trust in their ability to make the impossible possible," something like that. And I liked that sort of phrase, and it begins to me with, okay, so you have that intention that, yes, I want this in my world or my life, and then giving yourself permission to receive it. Receiving is huge. I remember showing someone a video once about not only the law of attraction, but this idea of visualizing and also manifesting things into your life. And the comment she said at the end was, what I have the hardest time with is receiving. How someone will tell us, oh, you have a pretty dress on. Oh, this old thing. I don't do that anymore. I just receive it and I smile, which then takes us to the next thing I'm going to say, which is gratitude. You have to be willing to be grateful for the small things and the big things, and that includes the challenges, because they're not going to go away. They're there for a purpose and a reason to help us learn, but it's what allows us to see certain blessings and certain helps that are there that maybe we wouldn't recognize, that are going to help us on that path of creating this supposed impossibility, which really isn't at all.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you as far as, things that, we're asking for, and if something, doesn't happen or, not in the speed that, we would want, being able to recognize in that space, the awesomeness and the blessing and the greatness, I would say, even that exists in that space, because, especially as, even artists, I work with a lot of artists and entrepreneurs in general, the idea of what's next, the glory and the last accomplishment is usually, very short-lived. when you work for yourself,